The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to our webinar today, which is presented by Jewish Family and Children's Service and Parents in a Pinch. Our webinar today is called Food Fights, Encouraging Healthy Eating Habits so Everyone Wins.
Today, our presenters are myself, Allison Kaufman. I'm a registered dietitian, and I work with families to nurture healthy eating. And I also want to add that this presentation is prepared for primarily 6 to 15-month-olds for some specific information, but that a lot of the information that I'll present also applies to broader ages through teenage years.
And along with Allison, I will be presenting. My name is Jennifer Meyerhart. I work with families at risk for developmental, social, and educational challenges. Jewish Family and Children's Service is Greater Boston's leading and trusted provider of comprehensive human services. Today, our webinar topics will be presented through slides. This webinar can only be heard through your phone. Your voices will be muted. Questions can be submitted in the dialog box and will either be answered individually by myself or be addressed for the group. We are going to begin with a poll question. You will see it up on your screen in a moment. Our first poll question is, would you consider your infant or toddler to be a good eater? We'll take a moment and let you respond. About 80% of you feel that your toddler is a good eater, and about 20% of you feel your toddler is not a good eater.
So to start, I wanted to share a story with you that a mom described her good eater. Rachel is nearly 3, and she's still a good eater, though that's not to say she eats everything I give her. Some days she eats lots, and some days not. Some days she doesn't like things she previously enjoyed, like last night with fish, and some days she comes back to something I thought was lost forever, like last week with avocado. Would you have thought of this child as a good eater? When we think of the word good, we may associate steady, consistent, adequate, or well-behaved. And these words can actually contradict what learning how to eat resembles in children. There can be a number of struggles around meals, and these are common. And it is common to worry that your child is too small and therefore not eating enough, or too large and therefore eating too much. And as a parent, it's a really primal instinct to have these concerns about our children, because the children who were fed well from a primal perspective grew to survive and pass on their genes. And so this is something that is very strong within us, and this is where power struggles can start.
Allie, I have to say, in the many families I work with, struggles around meals and food and how much is consumed to be one of the biggest issues.
Yes, it is a big concern that I do hear a lot about. And this is actually a good lead-in to our next poll question.
So our second poll question is coming up on the screen. In the past week, have you been concerned about your child eating enough at a meal? I'll give you a moment to answer. Well, it seems that overwhelmingly about 88% of you have been, during the past week, concerned about your child eating enough at a meal.
I think that's really telling of how a lot of parents feel, because ultimately what every parent wants is to have a child that's a well child. And a well child means a child who is neither overweight nor underweight, who is in good health, and is developing normally for his or her age. And even though we want well children, every parent brings their own feelings, beliefs, and practices that can influence our perception as parents of how meals are going, and stressors can be common. Also, our own struggles with food, such as weight or body image, can have an impact, and some of us are aware of these struggles. We can keep from engaging in this cycle by building awareness and protect children from an unhealthy cycle. The main idea behind healthy feeding practices is stated very well here by the American Academy of Pediatrics. They recommend empowering parents to promote children's ability to self-regulate calories within the backdrop of providing healthy choices. So keeping this in mind, the goals of meals from 6 to 15 months old is really the idea of promoting self-confidence for children to be able to feed themselves. You may notice there are no nutrient or food group goals here, because this is not the focus unless there is a medical concern for growth and development. It is reasonable to expect only 1 to 2 foods and 1 to 2 tablespoons per sitting. This idea connects with the concept of division of responsibility in feeding as developed by Ellen Satter. Ellen Satter is a registered dietitian, licensed social worker, and author of Child of Mine, Feeding with Love and Good Sense. I am not here to promote one particular dietitian or book, but this division of responsibility is considered the premier philosophy in feeding when there are struggles at mealtimes. And this philosophy applies through adolescence. According to this model, children are responsible for deciding whether to eat and how much of the food that's offered to eat. Parents, on the other hand, are responsible for when families should eat, what healthy array of foods to serve, and where we should be for the meals or the snacks. Techniques such as the Clean Plate Club, rewarding with dessert, or telling a child they've had enough or too much are easy to try, but truly undermine the child's learning and ability to self-regulate and gain confidence. As a parent, it can be a real leap of faith to try this, but if there are struggles at meals, this is the approach to try.
Our third poll question is coming up on the screen at this point. Have you ever tried to introduce a new food to your child more than 10 times, even if he or she has rejected it every time? I'll give you a moment to answer. It seems about 70% of you, after trying to introduce a new food less than 10 times, decide to stop trying that food, which is very interesting.
And actually, that is really, those results are really consistent with what I've seen when working with parents. Most parents try a new food about 3 to 5 times. And the reason is because it can feel like a lot more than that, even though it's only been 3 to 5 times. In actuality, it can take up to 10 to 20 times for a child to accept a new food. If it takes this many times, your child is actually doing a really good job of being skeptical of new foods, which again goes back to a primal instinct to avoid the poisonous mushroom in the wilderness. It's a survival technique. So your child is doing a really good job. But for parents, it can be really stress-provoking. So I would recommend trying a chart that documents how many times you've tried a food so that it keeps parents able to continue on this repeated marathon, what feels like a repeated marathon style of introductions. With 21 meals plus snacks each week, it's really easy to get that trial fatigue, so that's one idea to prevent it. And eventually, your child may or may not learn to love those foods, but at least as parents, we know we've given them the options to get used to it. And the last thing is to not take it personally when a child doesn't like a food, and not to pressure. And because children know when you really care, and that's when they're going to push back. So the next thing that I wanted to share with you is to expect messiness at mealtimes. And planning for it can help reduce stress about it. Things like mushing, dropping, throwing, and pushing food out of the mouth are really common things that children do. And they're actually using these techniques to get used to a new food. So they're very positive in that way, but they can cause stress around mealtime. These children are all using a different technique in the different pictures to get used to the foods. And allowing children to be messy for meals can help them learn how to build their confidence with food. So the final point is to eat together. Eating together is really important for a number of reasons: better communication, relationship building skills, better school performance, better adjustment, and better nutrition. For example, according to a study that Harvard did, children who ate dinners with family members also had significantly higher intakes of dietary fiber, calcium, iron, folic acid, vitamins B6, B12, C, and E. So family meals are very powerful.
Family meals are also, Allie, a great time and opportunity for parents to model good eating behaviors.
That is a really good point. And actually, along those lines, one last item about family meals is to not talk about food. It can be an opportunity to talk about work, plans for the weekend, or sports, or anything else other than food. When we talk about food at meals, the food can take on a larger meaning than just eating. And despite our best intentions, it will almost always result in a power struggle. So I wanted to leave you with this mantra. And in order to help us to remember to allow children to be in charge of the how much and whether part of feeding themselves. Children will eat. They will eat the amount they need. They will learn to eat the food their parents eat. They will grow predictably, and they will learn to behave well at the table. And lastly, I have some experiments for you to try at home based on the things that we discussed today. Number one is not responding. If your child does not eat a food, try not responding, knowing and feeling confident that there will be a next time. Introduce new food at least 10 times, and use that tracking method if it would be helpful to keep the perspective in the moment. Third, talk about anything other than food at meals to help keep the peace and keep the focus on each other rather than the food. Next, celebrate small victories with your child. A tablespoon of this, a piece of that, a squeeze. For example, this child in the picture is holding an apple. Celebrate them all and you'll both be rewarded. And lastly, talk with your healthcare provider if you are concerned about your child's growth and development before reacting to those feelings during meals. This will help maintain the positive interaction you want to have with your child during mealtime.
Please send us your questions via the question box. We may not be able to get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as possible. Your question box is on the right side of your screen. Allie, there seems to be a question asking about dessert.
So what to do about dessert? That is a really good question. So the question of dessert actually is the one exception to the division of responsibility for infants to toddlers. So the recommendation is to provide a small amount of a dessert with the dinner plate so that the child knows it's an option that they can choose to eat if they want, but that they don't have to, and it doesn't create any special meaning around it. The only difference between the dessert and the other food offerings is that there is a limit on the amount. And the reason for this is because children, although they will learn to like a wide array of foods, they will also try to cheat the system if allowed. And so that is why we have that special recommendation for dessert.
We received another question. What if I put out food and my child won't eat it and begs for something unhealthy? This, Allie, is definitely something I see in so many families where the parent becomes a short order cook because the child has gotten into the routine of refusing to eat what's being served and instead asking for either something unhealthy or just the one or two foods that they are willing to eat.
So that is another really great question and something that I've seen as well. There are a couple of options for approaches to this question. One, and it involves having a sort of safety food. So some parents might choose to have a food that they offer, and it might be a couple of different things for some variety each night, but have at least one thing on the table that they know their child will eat, and then whatever else they choose not to eat, it's just that the parent knows that they'll at least eat that safety food. This is a little bit of, not everybody agrees on whether on the safety food, but it's a great tool that parents can find helpful. Other parents choose to let the child not eat at that meal, knowing that they will get hungry again and eat the next meal. And actually, it's connected with a point of that a child gets their nutrition over the course of a week and not even over the course of a day or a meal. And so some parents do feel really comfortable with keeping that in mind, that over the course of a week a child will get what they want, will get the nutrition that they need, even if they don't do it all in that one meal.
Allie, here's an interesting question. My preschooler is not really a big bread eater. What are other high fiber foods that she might be likely to eat?
So high fiber foods, there are a number of great high fiber foods. Any food that is a plant has fiber if it's not processed. So vegetables, beans, fruits, and whole grains are the primary sources of fiber. So you could try something within the grain group, which could be like a cereal or brown rice or whole wheat pasta, or you could try something from a different group, like mushed beans or in a dip, or banana or as a snack, or some kind of vegetable with the meal. And that would also be great sources of fiber.
Here, Allie, is another question which I'll answer. Your slide says, meaning yours, Allie, that it's okay for 18-month-olds to play with food. When should children stop playing with food? I think that's a really great question. I don't think there's one set age you can say when it's time to stop playing with food. I think what a parent, when they start to feel that it's not quite right, they need to ask themselves, what's going on? What's the meaning behind my child's behavior? Why are they playing with food? Are they playing with the food because they know it's making me upset? Are they playing with the food because they're really trying to figure out it's a new food and they're trying to feel its texture and get a sense of what it's about? Are they playing with the food because they're just really not interested in eating? And I think that a lot of when it's time to stop is what's the meaning behind it and what's the parent's comfort level. Here's a question for you, Allie. My children were always great fruit eaters, and now I find I can't find anything that they want other than raisins, and I'm concerned about the sugar. Do I keep offering the fruit they liked in the past, even they spit it out or throw it on the ground?
That is a really great question. There are a number of children who I've been in touch with their through their parents who really have that one favorite food, and it is hard to introduce anything else, or it feels hard to introduce anything else. And so I think what you're asking is, the question went away. I want to make sure I answer the right thing here. So you're wondering, should you keep offering the raisins? What they used to like. Okay, thank you. Even if they spit it out or throw it on the ground. Thank you. So it depends. Again, I think the behavioral piece is like Jennifer mentioned, is different depending on the child and what's behind it, and really up to the parent. But as far as the idea of continuing to introduce foods, that is what is recommended, is to continue to introduce a variety of foods. And again, even though it feels really hard in the moment when children are rejecting foods, it's staying the course will make the biggest difference in the long term for your child.
This is a really great question. Should we praise one sibling's willingness to try new foods as an example when another sibling doesn't want to try something new? I think this goes along with Allie's thoughts about celebrating the trying of new foods. I think it's great if whoever's at the table and is trying something new to just say, wow, I'm so proud of you for trying that apple. I'm so proud of you for trying that new type of meat. I think that's a great thing to do. What I wouldn't do is pick out the other sibling and say to them, do you see what your brother's doing? Because then it becomes a competition and then the power comes in. So I would think it's a great idea to praise whoever's trying the new food, but I wouldn't do it in comparison to the person who isn't. Hopefully the child who isn't will sort of see the joy and praise and celebration they get from their parent and want to receive that as well. But we don't want the other sibling to feel shamed or to become even more engaged in some type of power struggle with their parents because they're being pointed out or particularly being told that they're not getting the praise. Allie, what tips do you have for dealing with a 4-year-old that is very picky about what types of food she will eat and doesn't care about going to bed hungry?
That is a really good question, and it's, depending on, as a 4-year-old, depending on how long this has been a struggle, it might be a good idea to check with your pediatrician about what they might recommend. And so that's one thing. And then if you're concerned about whether she'll actually go hungry, the research does support that she will not go hungry and that she will eat enough to support a growing body. So I hope that addresses that side of things. But any time that a parent, is concerned about child's growth or development, that's when you definitely want to ask the pediatrician.
Absolutely, and I think also it just talks about that question, and so many of those types of questions, Allie, talk about how do we take the power struggle out of it. Because I've so frequently in the families I work with have seen food or other issues become a power struggle, and then it becomes much more than about the eating or the bedtime or whatever it might be, or the putting the coat on. It becomes about the power struggle. So any ways to kind of minimize that power struggle, as you talked about, I think are incredibly helpful. I think we have time for one more question. What if me and my partner have different approaches to eating? And I think that's a great question. It's funny, our last webinar talked about parenting as partners, because there are so many issues that come up in families where two parents have a different approach. I think it's really important for the parents, out of the earshot of their kids, to sit down and have a conversation about their different theories. Parents don't have to do the exact same things, because meanings are contextual, and children will learn that different things and meanings are associated with different parents. But I think to have, as much as possible, some united front, particularly around eating, because it can be so complicated, is really important. So at least to find some common ground. And the way parents should do that, or partners should do that, is to talk about it out of the earshot of the children. Really ask themselves, what are their own philosophies? Where did they come from? What do they imagine they want their family to do or not to do? And try to find as much common ground as possible, so that the children receive, to some degree, a united message. It doesn't have to be the exact same message. Oh, we have one last question that we have time for. Allie, sometimes my daughter pretends to be full because she wants to play. But is she really full? Maybe yes, maybe no.
That is a really, thank you, Jennifer. I don't know if that's a question for me versus a question about, you know, it's inferring. It's a little behavioral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm willing to take a bit of a stab at that. I mean, the thing is, I don't know how old your particular daughter is, but the truth is, many children, particularly in their toddler years, are much more interested in playing than eating. So it's not at all an atypical situation. I think that to force your child to sit and eat would not really be helpful. Again, this would bring up the power struggle. What you can say is check in with her. Are you full? Because if you're ready to play, that's fine, but I'm going to clear away the food now. And I think over time, your child will learn that if she can go play and then she's hungry and the food is gone, well, then she's maybe not made the best choice. The thing is to keep the food there and let her go play and come back to the table and go play. If that doesn't work for you, then that's a problem. So it's really what works for you. But I would make sure you understand what you want the message to be. And I would let her, as Allie said, make the choice how much food. She knows whether or not she's full. And at certain times in her growth, she's going to be fuller more quickly than others, as well as at times she's going to want to play more frequently than eat.
Thank you. That was a great answer.
So at this point, we are going to wrap up our webinar.
So please join us for our next webinar, The Most Valuable Toy in the World, You, Wednesday, December 14th at 12:30 p.m. To receive individualized parenting support, please contact Terry Chevitt at tchevitt@jfcsboston.org or 781-693-5669.
You can learn more about our parent consultation program on our website, which is up on your screen. If any of this has seemed to you to raise questions that you would like individually approached, we have parent consultants that can address different issues around behavior with eating, or all types of behavioral and developmental issues that may occur in your family. So I would encourage you, if you have particular struggles going on with your family, to call one of our parent consultants. We're here to help you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again on December 14th.